Tensions escalate between China and Philippines as both the countries are accusing each other of deliberately ramming their Coast Guard ships in the South China Sea. This is the latest spate of similar incidents in weeks. This is the fifth incident within this month. Meanwhile, no such injuries have been reported in these collisions, is what we are learning. Now, Philippines Coast Guard has said that Chinese vessel 5205 has directly and intentionally rammed into their vessel. The Philippine vessel has been anchored inside Sabina Shoal since April to assert Manila's claim over that particular area. In contrast, Chinese side has said that Philippines ship has deliberately collided with the Chinese Coast Guard ship in an unprofessional and dangerous manner. The US has criticized China's dangerous games in the region, and they have condemned the multiple dangerous violations of the international law, including the recent incident of this collision. They have said that they stand with Philippines in upholding international law. Meanwhile, China has asserted its claim on the entire South China Sea. Along with its rapid military growth, it considers the area near the Sabina Shoal as crucial for its international trade. China has recently filed a diplomatic protest against Philippines because of its prolonged presence in this region. Now, this is not the first time both countries have accused each other of ramming their ships. This has been going on for quite some time now. The question arises is that how long is this blame game going to go on? What is needed to checkmate China, or is this an escalation of something? That is exactly what we will discuss with our guest. Joining us on the show is Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat. Also with us on the program, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, former Commander-in-Chief of the Operational Active Western Naval Command. Joining us on the show is also Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director of the India Foundation. Last but not the least, Mr. Vijay Kranti, Chairman of Chase, is also joining us on the show. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Important that we understand, General Katoch, what is going on over here. You know, earlier it was Taiwan. It is Taiwan still going on because China continues to poke Taiwan the wrong way, which is rubbing the United States the wrong way as well. You know, it's a vast sea, General Katoch. You know, two ships running into each other accidentally is obviously unfathomable. This is deliberate on China's attempt, this is bullying on China's attempt, and this is something that India definitely can relate to and testify to.
You know, in my view, I think this is absolute deliberate provocation by China, which has been carrying on for the last decade and over that even. If you look at the geography of the place, you know, when you look at the north, you've got the Scarborough Shoal, and then this incident which has taken place in Sabina is about 2 to 3 kilometers south, 2 to 300 kilometers further south, all along the western coast of Philippines. And all these areas where these shoals are existing, from Scarborough to Sabina, they are about 100 to 150 kilometers from the Philippines coast. And they are more than 1,000 kilometers from the Chinese coast. That is the geography. Now, China, when they made their 9-dash line, they included all these shoals into that 9-dash line, thereby illegally claiming all those areas. And when this case came up to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016, the Permanent Court judged China's claims as frivolous and said they are not applicable. Basically, they said that these claims of China are false. Now, in this particular case, the most recent incident, you know, it's very interesting to see how the Chinese have worded their statement. As per the Chinese statement, a Filipino ship illegally stranded at the Sabina Shoal. Hear the words, illegally stranded, rammed into the Chinese. Now, the first point is, if it was stranded, there is no way in which a stranded ship has the power and the capacity to ram into a ship which is not stranded. Of course, the Philippines correctly contested that claim. This is simply an act of aggression by China. There should be no doubts about it. And they have their interest because this entire region, when we are looking at the west coast of the Philippines, it falls into their exclusive economic zone. But that is the zone which has got a huge amount of oil and gas deposits and other mineral resources of the seas. And this is what is really of China's interest. So China is using force. It is the major power there. It is using force. It is trying to coerce Philippines. But to the credit of the Philippines, their Coast Guard and their government, they are resisting those pressures. And in my view, I think the whole world body should get together to condemn this blatant act of aggression which is being done by the Chinese.
All right. Ambassador Goel, where do you stand on this? Obviously, diplomatically, China doesn't believe in conversation. China doesn't believe that, you could sit across the table and sort this out. In fact, China is very, adept at sending messages, or rather a big message to big powers by, by bullying these small powers. And that is something that it has been doing for a very, very long time. Is this provocation going to lead to something big? What's your opinion, sir? Sir, I can't hear you.
I'm still in the mute. Okay.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Vineet, and I'm happy to be here, particularly because this is an issue which is reduced to such simplicity by most of us, really, that we forget, really speaking, that the problem is not now. The problem is not China as now, but the problem has dated back to something around 1930s and coming into, again, prominence in 1945 or 47, when the Republic of China at that time, in control of China, had basically published the 11-dash line indicating certain areas of the shoals and the land formations, etc., as part of China. The Communist Party of China used that further to really further buttress, further reinstate its claim on the maritime land, maritime areas in the neighborhood. And therefore, one thing that we now really see as a matter of international dispute is that in this particular case, both Taiwan and China are equal parties. Taiwan, even though is not really considered in this discussion as part of China, but Taiwan has laid the claim and they have not backed out of the claim on the 11-dash line, number one. Number two, it is undoubtedly a provocation from China. There is no doubt about it. And Major General Dhruv Katoch has explained it very well, really. But the fact is, will China ever back out of its claim in the areas? I have not seen any evidence of it so far, and I don't think it is going to happen in the near future, because even the USA, which is interested in the Indo-Pacific and establishing formations like AUKUS, Quad, etc., how far would it go to support the claims of the maritime states in that area to their economic zones and the sovereignty in the area? So far, even the USA has talked only about freedom of navigation. And therefore, when the Philippines vessel is anchored on the Sabina Shoal for various reasons, it is described by Chinese as a stranded ship and rammed in by the Chinese coastal ship. And I don't think so far the USA or anybody has so far condemned China for this act. ASEAN. We will come to Philippines and India bilateral in a moment, but ASEAN has so far refused to condemn China for its aggressive activities in South China Seas. They keep on talking about the code of conduct, but so far the code of conduct has not been established simply because China continues to be obstructive. Everybody knows what China wants, but ASEAN countries, including Singapore, Malaysia is of course in the pocket of China. Malaysia has never ever said anything to China for their aggressive design. Only country which basically comes and has the capacity to face China or to deter China is Indonesia, if they have sufficient naval strength. But do they have a strong navy at the moment, at present? Therefore, what we are looking at really, what the future is going to be in the area. And I must confess, at the moment, in the future, I do not see anything that can happen to deter China from its aggressive designs. And that is a big problem, because internationally also big powers, whether they have any interest in resolving the issue or not, I do not know. If the USA does not even speak on basically China complying with the decision of the arbitration court on UNCLOS, China will have its way. Beneath.
Admiral Sinha, how do you view this this situation? Obviously, the Philippines is at a disadvantage here, and Ambassador Goel is right. The ASEAN countries have not really voiced too much of a concern when it comes to this bullying.
Well, thank you very much, Vineet, for getting me on your show. Firstly, a shoal is a little bit of a land piece or a sandbank which emerges out of water in the low water time, and occasionally some parts of it disappear during the high water time. And these are basically navigational hazards, but it is a piece of land, and what General Katos mentioned, that it has got mines, minerals around it, and it is actually all over the South China Sea. And that is one of the reasons why China is keeping, the historical claims on it. As far as the Philippine ship is concerned, BRP Teresa Magbanua, it was well inside, within the about 500 meters radius of the shoal. And it has been anchored there for a very long time. So it wasn't moving. So the Chinese claim that it has come and rammed is absolutely absurd. It's a ship with at anchorage, you can't go and ram anybody. And I have seen the videos of that on the day it happened. So very much a Chinese ship has come. It has hit first on the starboard quarter of the ship, that is on the starboard corner. Then it has hit on the port beam, that is on the midship of the left side, and then it has hit on the bows, on the shall I say, the nose of the ship. So it is a clear. I should say that is absolutely suicidal tendencies with all these Chinese ships and aircraft. They have done a very similar thing with the Australian aircraft. They have done a very similar thing with the American aircraft. Mind you, the American aircraft, they had to force land, and one guy had to eject once. They came so close. Now, why are they doing? We know it. Will China change? It will not change. But my take is, Vineet, that it may not be Taiwan on which a major conflict will, happen. But I have a feeling that these islands and shoals will actually lead to a warfare, slightly enlarged war at sea, well before Taiwan has happened. And I think that, by doing this on a smaller islands, on a smaller countries, China is only telling the world that, look, I have already rehearsed this on Sabina Shoal. I have already, done it on so-and-so shoal, Scarborough Shoal, and now I will do it on a bigger island. So I think China is basically wanting to tell the world that, look, do what you like. I will not give up my claim on these islands and shoals. So I think only way, as Ambassador Goel rightly mentioned, that they have to be condemned every time. ASEAN is the biggest culprit because it is happening in their own area, and they don't seem to say anything. And they have been just going and getting away with this kind of murder. And I think the problem with ASEAN is not that. ASEAN is so economically intertwined with the Chinese that they feel, they sense that there will be repercussion and their economy will collapse, their GDP will go. So this is the worry. But then the Americans have gone. Now they have got full access in Philippines. I don't understand why they don't. And I think they don't want to provoke a major conflict because of the elections are coming up. It might just, show them in poor light by the Republicans. They might just say that you can't even prevent a major conflict with a country like China, who happens to be your largest trading partner. But so is China to 120 plus countries. It's the largest trading partner. How long can we keep accepting the bullying? So we are looking at a creation of a different international, disruptive international order. And it is, these are just the symptoms. And if something is not being done, and I suspect, should President Trump come back and America becomes more inward looking, China will become even more belligerent. And these 3-4 countries who are together, certainly we are looking at something worse than what the international system which actually exists right now. Vineet.
Mr. Kranti, these provocations have been, frequent in the past as well, sporadic as yet. Would you dismiss them as posturing, or would you actually look at them as a sign of things to come?
It's surely not a issue of posturing alone. China has a much longer program about various parts of the world. One thing, when you see that how China is, by defining 9-dash line or 11-dash line and claiming that everything which falls within this line is China's property, and without realizing that the distance between China's mainland and the Chinese shore and these countries is nowhere less than 1,000 or 1,500 kilometers, and in some cases it's more than 2,000 kilometers. Even going, claiming, when making claim on Brunei, it looks really, I don't know what term to use, funny or foolish, that they are claiming that Brunei's parts are belonging to China without bothering to see that it's more than 2,000 kilometers away from the Chinese mainland. Same thing is with Philippines. Same thing is with Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia. I think this, what Xi Jinping is right now doing, he is following Sun Tzu's policy of taking the war and fight into the enemy's zone, not in your own home. On the land, they have already assured that whenever there is a fight, it will not be on China's land. They have occupied Tibet, they have occupied South Mongolia, they occupied East Turkestan, which they call Xinjiang. So if there is any fight with countries which are bordering these three colonies, it will be by all means, even if there is a fight happening inside Tibet, it will be actually outside China. So on the other front, on the sea front, China is taking the same, extending the same policy and taking the fight to very distant areas so that its own mainland remains safe. I think here, these countries, especially all those 8 countries which I see in the list, is Philippines, Brunei, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea. These are 8 victims, targets of China at one given time. I think it will be a much wiser idea for these countries, for at least for on this issue, they must join hands so that they don't have fight 1-to-1 with China. It should be 8 fighting with China, and then I think it is the duty of the world community. In world community, I don't mean America and NATO or so. All other countries, including India and the other countries which are facing trouble with China, I think this is time they should realize that they have to come together and put pressure on China. Otherwise, if they allow Philippines to be beaten up by China, if they allow Vietnam to be beaten by China, or Brunei or Malaysia or Indonesia, then I think the world will have it. You can't fight today's China 1-to-1. You have to join hands, and this incident, as they are happening in South China Sea, they are an indication, a wake-up call for the rest of the world to join hands and stand up against this bully. Otherwise, this bully has already grown beyond, those limits where it could have been easily controlled. Now, unless the rest of the world joins hands, especially these 8 countries of South China Sea, Yellow Sea, they have to join hands to deal with China. And one more point, I think we have to be very serious about. The narrative which China is able to carry throughout is somewhere showing that everything belongs to China and everybody else should keep off. In case of India, they say, this was Chinese leadership who were saying Indian Ocean doesn't mean India's ocean. But the moment it comes to South China Sea, they say it is China's sea. So the narratives which China walks away with throughout, that should be challenged very strongly, and it can't be done single-handed by any other country, whether it is Philippines or other.
All right, so we are running out of time. We'll take concluding thoughts from all our panelists, starting with General Katoch. General Katoch.
I've got one very simple point. I think it is important for all of us to oppose what China is doing. It is when they attack the Philippines, in a sense, they are attacking India also. We have to speak now. Otherwise, over a period of time, all of us will be defeated individually. So we have to stand up now. And that is my final concluding thoughts. Vineet.
All right. Ambassador Goel.
Vineet, just one very simple point here. China actually works on the basis of imposing economic costs. What it is doing in actually Philippines waters is economic cost of really ramming the ship, and therefore making it more and more difficult for the Philippine Navy to act. The only way to deal with China is limit its economic influence. That's the only thing they understand. Once we are able to constrain China economically, they will pull back.
All right. Admiral Sinha.
Well, I think China has to be paid back in the same coin. I don't think these soft options work on China. And unless they suffer materially in some form or the other, they are not going to learn. The moment that damage starts taking place in their various ports, I think they will learn. They will realize what they're doing. There are no soft options with China.
Mr. Kranti, sir?
Yeah, I would very much agree with Admiral Sinha and Ambassador Goel when they pointed out that the world should have to join hands. We are dealing with a bully. And bully's basic problem is that he thinks that he is the most powerful as long as you don't give him a bleeding nose. So somebody has to stand up. And this time, not one country has to stand up. All those who are affected or feel endangered, they must join hands on the economic front and of course on diplomatic and military front. So unless world joins hands, it may be too late for the world.
All right.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.